On a cold, misty night, a young woman named Clara decided to explore the abandoned house at the end of her street. The locals spoke of strange occurrences, but Clara was skeptical. Armed with nothing but her phone's flashlight, she stepped inside, the creaking floorboards echoing in the silence. As she moved through the dusty rooms, she noticed the walls were covered in faded photographs of a family that once lived there. One photo caught her eye, a young girl with strikingly sad eyes. Clara felt an inexplicable chill as she stared into the girl's gaze. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a text from an unknown number. "Get out." Clara's heart raced, but she brushed it off as a prank. She ventured deeper into the house, her curiosity piqued. In the living room, she found a music box, beautifully ornate but covered in cobwebs. As she turned the key, it began to play a haunting lullaby. The air around her grew cold, and she felt a presence, like someone was watching her. Shivers ran down her spine, but she was too intrigued to leave. The lullaby seemed to draw her in, and as she listened, she could almost hear the soft weeping of a child. The sound grew louder, echoing through the empty halls. Clara felt compelled to follow it, moving toward a door at the end of the hallway that she hadn't noticed before. With a trembling hand, she opened the door to reveal a small, dimly lit room. In the corner, she saw a figure, a girl, no older than 10, sitting on the floor, her back turned. Clara called out, but the girl didn't respond. She felt a mix of fear and compassion and stepped closer. As Clara reached out to touch her shoulder, the girl slowly turned around. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow and full of sorrow. Clara gasped, realizing this was the girl from the photograph. The girl pointed silently to the wall behind her. Turning to look, Clara saw scratch marks etched deep into the wood. They formed a desperate plea, "Help me." In that moment, the room grew dark, and the music box's lullaby warped into a dissonant wail. Clara felt a wave of panic and turned to run, but the door slammed shut. The girl's face twisted in anguish as she reached for Clara, who backed away in terror. "Please!" Clara screamed, pounding on the door. But the only response was the chilling sound of the girl's cries melding with the music box, echoing through the house. With a final surge of desperation, Clara lunged at the door. It burst open, and she stumbled back into the hallway, heart pounding. The house seemed to groan around her, the air thick with sorrow. She ran for the front door, the cries of the girl still ringing in her ears. Just as she reached the threshold, she glanced back. The girl stood at the end of the hallway, her eyes wide and pleading. Then, she faded into the shadows, leaving only the silence behind. Clara burst out into the night, gasping for air. She never returned to the house, but the haunting cries followed her in her dreams. Years later, she would learn that the girl had vanished without a trace, leaving only her story behind, a story Clara could never forget.